Hello everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. We begin this evening with the decriminalization of certain street drugs. There is, as many people know, a pilot project underway right now in British Columbia, made possible with federal approval. But the pilot continues to be attacked in the House of Commons, Conservatives using an amendment to the pilot as proof of the experiment's failure, and today asking the Prime Minister about his plans for similar projects in cities across the country.
He has a request from the Montreal Mayor, the Toronto City Hall, and we don't know what other municipalities. So either A, he believes the experiment was a disaster, or B, he plans to repeat it. Which is it?
The only way we move forward on any proposals across this country around decriminalization or other methods to support to fight the toxic drug overdose is when provinces step up and actually ask for it. Failing that, we will not be moving forward on any modifications.
Well, with more on this debate and to share her perspective, we are now joined by Debra Bailey. She is an advocate for Moms Stop the Harm, a network of families who have been affected by substance use harms and deaths. Bailey's own daughter, Ola, died from an overdose in 2015. Ms. Bailey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you heard it right there, Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader. He was asking about future pilot programs, but really at the heart of this is the question. Poilievre's assessment of the pilot. He calls it a deadly disaster. What do you make of that?
I make that's an absolute distortion of the facts, and we resent, I think, not just Poilievre, but several politicians who've been using this as a platform for politicking. People are dying here, and we need to be able to work cooperatively together. They're not dying of decriminalization, though, I might like to point out.
Okay, not dying of decriminalization, but the BC government did ask for and receive permission to scale back the pilot. Is that not an admission that the pilot is failing, or at least not succeeding as planners had hoped?
No, I don't think so. The intent of the decriminalization was to actually reduce the stigma that follows drug users around, and it can be really quite vicious at times. I've experienced it myself. And so the idea was that a person who uses drugs could possess 2.5 grams of certain drugs for personal use. What happened was unfortunate, I think, because there's been a confusion, I think, of what is use and what is possession. So some people, and I don't think that's as many as have been said, were using drugs in inappropriate places, i.e. hospitals, we heard, etc. But I think those are few and far between. The reason that public drug use was not criminalized was because there are ever so many people here who don't have homes. They don't have a place to go to. The only place they might have is in public. But it's never been okay to use it at schools or children's parks. That was never covered. So that's kind of the unfortunate bit, is that we're marginalizing again the people who are already marginalizing and dying out there on the streets alone. By not stigmatizing them, we hope that they would come forward and maybe ask for help or be with somebody else. So that was the purpose of it.
Mm-hmm. That was the purpose of it. But with this amendment, of course, the public drug use is going to be once again enforced. That will not be allowed. How does this then work? Because if the pilot project is to be a success, are you going to have to create more safe spaces? How does this amendment now affect what will happen on the ground?
I think more safe spaces would be great, and I also think what we need to do is stop putting in, we'll put in this little piece and we'll put in this little piece, and now we're going to put in decriminalization. We need to look at a total plan. So do we need decriminalization? Sure. But what are we going to do about the homeless people out there that don't have a place to use? What are we going to do about the poverty? What are we going to do about the guys in the trades who are dying alone because they have a home and they can use a loan? So we need to look at it as a holistic picture and stop just pulling bits out and thinking it's going to make a difference.
Now, Alberta is investing in its own version of a drug treatment program, investing more in money for beds, for example, prioritizing addiction recovery instead of a decriminalized drug approach. Why not focus on that kind of Alberta model instead of experimenting with decriminalization?
Well, I'm not sure that the Alberta model isn't an experiment as well, and we wish them the best. We wish them well. But right now, their overdose rate is alarmingly going up as well. So I think what all of us need to do, Alberta, BC, is look at evidence-based approaches. There's lots of research out there that can inform us as to what needs to be done. And we need to look at that evidence instead of waiting for years to look at it. I heard a doctor once said to me, and I believe it, no one needs to die from addiction. And I really believe that. This just isn't necessary. The drugs that people who are addicted must purchase, if they're addicted, are toxic. You know, they're unregulated and they're toxic and horrid things and full of stuff. And so we need to look at evidence-based approaches. We look with interest at what Alberta is doing and we wish them well. Maybe it's a combination of something like that, but I'm not sure that all their approaches are correct or that ours are.
Mm-hmm. Now, neither you nor I have a seat in the House of Commons, but as this debate is going on in Ottawa, I wonder if you had a chance to address members of Parliament, what would you say to them right now as, again, this decriminalization pilot is at the heart of such controversy?
Well, there's a real misconception that decriminalization has increased the number of deaths, and that's just not true. Some members in Parliament have saying, you know, what are you going to do? Or the last 9 days, there's been 60 deaths. You know what? That's about on par for British Columbia, 7 deaths a day. That's nothing new. Decriminalization was never intended to stop the deaths. You know, no matter what people say, it was to stop the stigma. The drugs can be poison whether they decriminalized or not. So I would say stop the rhetoric, get a nonpartisan committee if you can to start to looking at what to do, and maybe you should hire a group of experts. We have a lot in our country, and get them to prepare a nonpartisan program here that provinces could deploy. I don't think the government, anybody in government that I know of, is expert in addiction. And I can tell from what they're saying that many of them are certainly not. And it's a waste of time what they're doing. I think we need to get on with it. It's been, 8 years. I mean, my daughter died in 2015. It's just crazy where we're at now.
Debra Bailey, I appreciate the time. Really, I appreciate the insight as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you.